Hey everyone, it's Allison here with New Little Life. Okay, so we just did a video on all about the letdown and the milk ejection reflex. If you missed that video, I encourage you to go watch it. But now we're going to talk about tips for getting a better and a faster letdown. So if that's what you're looking for, hang tight. Let's just do a really quick brief overview of what is a letdown. So a letdown is when your hormone oxytocin surges and all that milk that's been stored up in the breast is pushed down and out, okay? Now, oxytocin, we talked about that in the video before, but in case you missed that, oxytocin is everywhere, okay? We talked about it in baby making, in pregnancy, in labor and birth, and now we're here in breastfeeding. So keep that in mind. Some of the same oxytocin experiences that you've probably already had will continue to serve you well in your breastfeeding relationship. Okay, so while I was making my list of these tips for better letdowns, I was Googling a little bit, and one of the most common recommendations I saw was to take a shower before breastfeeding. And I agree with that, but like, who has time to shower every time you have to breastfeed? Like, no. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about like some real practical stuff that you can do to get a letdown both with your baby and away from your baby while you're pumping. So here we go. Okay, so here's the first tip. I have not numbered these, so don't quote me on the numbers here. But my first recommendation for a better and faster letdown is to relax. And I know saying relax is like the worst way to make someone relax, but here's a couple of ideas that you can do. You can turn the lights down. You can make sure that your environment is safe and secure, that if you're in public, if you want to be covered, great. If you want to be in a corner by yourself, awesome. If you're totally comfortable in breastfeeding in public, like go for it. As long as you're comfortable and relaxed, that's the most important thing. If you're at your in-laws' house and the baby needs to eat and you're like stressing about all this stuff, you're not going to get a good letdown. So find another room and go over there, okay? If you're at the park though and you don't care, whip it out, feed that baby. You might have a letdown fine. Like everyone's different, so don't be afraid to do what you need to do to relax. If you're struggling to get a letdown, it might just be because you're too stressed and you need a little help. So go into a quiet room, lay down with your baby. The sideline nursing position is a fantastic one of my personal favorites. And just relax. Turn on some music. You can do this. Okay, my next tip is a great one and it's multifaceted, but you'll remember this, okay? And it is to engage all the senses. Okay, so let's start with sight. So if you're with your baby, even just looking and watching what your baby is doing is going to help a little bit. If you're away from your baby, I used to always take photos and videos of my baby actually breastfeeding, and I would watch them while I was trying to get that letdown. Scroll through my phone. I know you have a million pictures of your baby on your phone, so scroll through those, look at them. It can really help get your mind thinking about babies and feeding and get those hormones going, so that's a great tip. Touch is another great one. So if you're with your baby, stroking them, touching them, I love rubbing their little feet, playing with their fingers, and then of course skin to skin. So the more skin of theirs that you have on yours, the more hormones, the more relaxing, the more easily that letdown's gonna come. That's why they also recommend like a shower or a bath, and you can also do that with your baby. It's just the water and the warm, and it's just trying to get you to relax and get that milk and those hormones to flow. There's a lot of different ways that you can use touch to stimulate a letdown faster. I actually really like these little massagers. This one is from La Vie, and there's a discount code for you in the description. A little expensive, but if you're really struggling, this might be something that you like. It has a heat mode and a vibration mode. So the vibration mode for me is fine. I would probably use it more if I was struggling with like clogged ducts or something, but I love the heat especially. Just a little bit of warmth there. And even the vibration sometimes when I'm pumping and it's just like lame, you know, without the baby, that really does help. So something to consider if you're having a hard time. You can also just use your hands. So a little bit of massage, any kind of downward pressure, you can do a light massage. There's just so many things that you can do. I actually used to take, when I went back to work after my first, I used to take a little toy of his, most often a Hot Wheel car, like that he had been playing with that morning, and I would stick it in my pocket. And then when it was time to nurse, I would usually like hold that car and it would, look, I even get a little emotional just thinking about it, because it really just reminded me of him, and I had seen him play with it that morning. I hated going back to work, by the way, and I really missed my babies, but just touching even that, so I wasn't even touching my own breasts or anything, just to remember him really helped me as well. Okay, smell is another great one that you can try. You can bring a blanket or a onesie if you're away from your baby and smell that while you pump. A lot of moms really like engaging that sense. If you're with your baby, obviously smell them. That's a great way to encourage a letdown. Sound is also nice. Calming music, meditative music, any kind of singing or humming can also be really helpful, just to kind of bring that energy and that relaxing into a good place for a letdown. I know a lot of this may sound silly and crunchy, but it's the little things that really help get those hormones going. And then taste, of course. This would be a great time to bust out your tea or some water or something relaxing, just to like get that zen, warm place going. A letdown does kind of feel like a rush of warmth. You know, that milk is warm inside your body and it rushes out. It is warm. So sometimes taking in a warm drink can just kind of encourage that flow to start happening. So a great option for you. I love this mug. It's in my shop. Okay, another tip here for you is to focus on the sensations. So whether you're with your baby or pumping, you can do this either way, but just kind of focus on what you're feeling. And this is a great way to maximize the oxytocin. So we have oxytocin in lovemaking, pregnancy, labor, breastfeeding, like I've already told you. It's very similar to what you need to do in order to orgasm. I don't know, is that weird? Breastfeeding is not sexual, but this hormone is the same, okay? It's the same in pregnancy, breastfeeding, birth. I've already said all of these things. How do you get the oxytocin flowing in labor? Let's think about that. So you need to be relaxed and calm, and it is going to just flow on its own, but you kind of have to get out of the way. I don't know about you, but a lot of women find that also true for an orgasm. Like if you're tense or like thinking about something, or, you know, it's difficult to find that oxytocin climax. It just is. And it's a similar thing when you're breastfeeding. If you want the oxytocin to flow uninhibited and just do what it's supposed to do, you kind of need to get out of the way. So focus on what you're actually feeling. If it helps to close your eyes, definitely do that. Just kind of focus on what that feels like, and the oxytocin will just do the rest. So this next one is a little bit tricky. Multitasking can make it harder to have a letdown. Sometimes it can make it easier. So let's talk about that. If you're at work and you're still working and you got your pumps on and you're like, I often found that sometimes I could be pumping for 10 minutes and then I look down and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't even had my letdown yet. If I just stopped for 5 seconds and like, letdown, right? So sometimes multitasking can be too distracting, or if you're on your phone or like you just have a lot going on and you're like, man, I'm just not getting this. You might need to take a step back, do some deep breathing, find what relaxes you, do some things we've already talked about, and go from there. Now, if you're one of those moms who's sitting there kind of stressing about what's happening, like, okay, come on, relax, baby's going, they're hungry, they're crying, like, let's do this. You might need a little bit of a distraction to get out of your head. So maybe that's a good time to put on your favorite movie, or, you know, drink some tea so you're not like thinking directly about that. Maybe it's Instagram on your phone. If you follow a lot of breastfeeding accounts, you can follow mine if you want. Here it is for you. And you just kind of look and get your mind away from that, but not necessarily doing something that takes your focus. That can be helpful. So find the balance there that works best for you. Another tip for you. What are we on? Tip like 212 yet? This is gonna be a good video. Okay, you can change it up. So if you're feeding your baby on the breast and you're like, this is just not happening, switch to the other side. You can go back and forth as much as you want until you get that. If you're pumping, you can do the same thing. So sometimes it helps if you're just like not getting that letdown, turn the pump off or pause it. Take off the phalanges, reposition and put them back on. And sometimes just that repositioning or just the change in pressure and what's happening can be like, oh yeah, okay, let's do the hormones. So you're just kind of trying to tell your body what to do. And sometimes it gets used to what's happening and it forgets that is supposed to do the hormone thing. Does that make sense? So change it up. And lastly, this is actually one of my favorite recommendations. And I actually found this on a Kelly Mom blog, which was cool. But they related this technique to the Pavlov's dogs. And if you've heard of that experiment, it's where Pavlov trained these dogs to salivate at the ring of a bell. So every time he would give them food, he would ring a bell. Every time. It's also a hilarious The Office episode intro where Jim trains Dwight to salivate at his computer sound. Anyway, really funny. But it's the same, you can do the same kind of thing with a letdown. So eventually these dogs, when they heard the bell, would start to salivate even though they weren't given any food, because they had associated that bell sound with food and salivation. That's when you like have a lot of spit, in case you don't know. But you can do the same thing with a letdown. Try something that every time you have a letdown, you're doing the same thing, and eventually that thing will trigger the letdown. Kelly on our podcast, I'll link that down below, was remembering when her daughter was breastfeeding, and she said that her daughter had this special like little wave motion that she would kind of like wave over the breast, and it would always trigger a letdown for her. And even just her talking about it, I remember she mentioned like, I can almost feel the letdown coming right now. And she was done breastfeeding. She's like, because it just was it was something that she associated so strongly with the letdown that it could cause it on its own. You can really do this with just your mind too. You can do a lot of things with just using your mental space and telling your body what you want. So another common visualization moms like to do is visualizing water. So a waterfall, or even just stroking down like this can I'm going to make my own milk let down. Just find what works for you. I hope I gave you enough ideas that you can try something new, see what works for you. If you'll actually comment down below and tell us your favorite things to get a letdown, that would be really helpful for all the other moms watching, because I love the community that we end up building down in the comments. Follow me over on Instagram. I'll be posting a bunch of more tips and everything over there. And let's keep talking about this, because I love letdowns and breastfeeding, and I love helping you guys. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.